Welcome to the Collective Scope podcast, where we talk to great leaders who are influencing the next generation.
Welcome to the Collective Scope podcast. My name is Jeff Pitts, hosting alone. My usual counterpart, Rob Feucht, is in Louisville doing some PhD level work. I was considering, and I'll let you guys, the audience, decide maybe that when he gets his PhD and I finish this master's work, maybe we'll just call the show Dr. Rob and Master Jeff. But that's another conversation for another day. We want to get to today's conversation, and that is with recording artist, author, and now running for Congress in the Northern California, Sean Feucht. Welcome to the show, Sean.
Hey, guys. Glad to be here.
Yeah. So I was reading that in your bio that you are a former high school quarterback?
That's right. Yep, Uncle Rico, baby.
Uncle Rico. So are you ready for the national title game? Is that what you're preparing for now, Uncle Rico?
Yeah, I mean, I played in high school, and I got the high school championship ring. We actually won the state championship in Virginia. So my kids think it's a big deal when they see my ring of glory up on my dresser.
Oh, nice. So how does a kid from Virginia get clear out to the other coast there on the West Coast?
Oh, that's a long story. I mean, I ended up going to college in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Then I lived in Dallas. Then I lived in Pennsylvania. And now I'm out here in Northern California. As you can see, little Northern California glory right behind me, some antlers. And yeah, it's been a wild journey, but a lot of it did start back on the East Coast in Virginia.
Cool. So music's been a sort of the calling card for you, really, and the calling of your life. And we talk a lot to Rob and I work with college students here, and we work with leaders who work with college students. When did you know that was sort of the calling of your life, that music piece?
Well, I think music is definitely a part. I think the greater calling for me has always been the nations, the lost. It's always been, going into different parts of the world, the darkest and hardest parts of the world. That's always been my heart. And I think, my dad was a doctor, and, he used that skill. He was a full-time medical missionary. And for me, it's been music. And so I've used that, in the same way that my dad used medicine, I've used music. And, I have a business degree and stuff like that, and that's been really helpful. But music has been a huge door opener. And, I always tell people that songs go places that sermons can never go. So
I think that's incredibly true. I mean, I can't tell you how many times, and I don't know who gets the credit, but a Bethel song has been the song of a season in my life, to get me through something. And music has this power, and I think you're right, to open a door that sometimes a message won't. Where a musician, a person with the gift and skill of music, may get an opportunity that a preacher or pastor may never get. Have you found that true, that that music's opened doors for you that otherwise maybe you couldn't walk through?
Yeah, I mean, I think that songs, songs just carry, they carry the ability to move people's hearts. And, I think, there's a lot of places. Let's just take the Middle East, for example. We're over there a lot. We're in the Middle East a lot. We have long-term teams in Iraq and across the Middle East. And, you can't really get up in a street corner and preach necessarily, but you can release songs. They love music. They're a very musical culture. And you can essentially sing your sermons into their heart.
Wow.
And it's been powerful. We've seen God do amazing things through utilizing that tool.
Can you give us maybe one story of how a song in one of those nations or one of those situations really sort of changed the atmosphere of the environment?
Well, we're about ready to release a documentary. We have a 70-minute documentary that we shot with Bethel Music. I took a crew over with me to Iraq, and we shared, we basically kind of shared the story of how, being with the refugees that were under ISIS control for 3 years, what it looks like when they kind of come face to face with everything they were indoctrinated to hate. Americans, Christians, and we're the first ones with aid and food to open them with welcome arms. But we're also bringing music and we're bringing worship. And in the documentary, which I can't wait for you guys to see, I don't think there's been anything that's been captured like this. You see on the film incredible miracles happen. You see families. You kind of just see worship invading these really, really dark places and touching people. And there's so many testimonies. It's just really amazing to watch it happen.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. We'll have to keep our eye out for that documentary. I'm excited to get a look at that. Like I said to you earlier, we're on a college campus, and you talk a lot about calling and purpose. Is there a differentiation for you between calling and purpose?
Well, I get a chance to teach a lot to young people. We have a ministry school here in Reading that's 3,000 kids plus, and it's amazing. And everybody is amped to do something with their life. Everybody wants to be filled with purpose.
Right.
And I think that purpose, your calling, your purpose, why are you put here? Your identity is essentially so important to discover. And we kind of spend the first year out of that 3-year ministry school really just focusing on identity, because the enemy has just hammered and obliterated the identity of a generation. That's everything from who they are as sons and daughters to their sexual orientation to everything is being just assaulted. And so when you find that identity, when you find that purpose, and then you step into your calling, and the calling to me, it's irregardless of occupation. You can change jobs 20, 30 times in your life. I'm doing something today I never in a million years wanted to do or asked to do, but it's funny how what I'm doing actually does align with my purpose. And so, I think your purpose is why you're put on the earth, and your calling is the way in which you manifest that purpose in your life.
Man, that's great. So how did that come about? Let's talk about where you're going right now. Is you're running for Congress in Northern California? That obviously seems I don't want to say in contrast, but in a little bit different than leading worship at Bethel. How did that desire or that sort of purpose or that ambition come about?
It's not really been a desire, to be honest. I've never, I think people kind of in politics, I think they kind of align their life and do go to Harvard and get their MBA and blah, 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 and go in the right social circles. And they kind of work themselves into these things. For me, it's none of that. First and foremost, I just trying to be obedient to the doors God's open and the calling he has. And, is when I gave my life to the Lord and I laid everything down and I said, I'll go anywhere and do anything. That means putting on a bulletproof vest and bringing my guitar on the front lines with ISIS, which I've done many times, or walk into, North Korea, one of the most closed, hard nations in the world, or, put on a suit and run for Congress. I think that, to me, I think it's kind of going back to my point. It's irregardless. I think your occupation will look different, but I am burdened in the same sense. I'm burdened. I have 4 kids, 9, 7, 5, and 1, and I'm burdened with what the future in America is going to look like for them. I am passionate to see this death decree of Roe v. Wade overturned. I'm passionately pro-life. I would run the whole race for that alone. And then, I think being in California, it really accentuates kind of this crazy agenda that's taken root in America. That's governmental control and overregulation. And really, it's actually absolutely crazy. And so I think I'm just standing up and saying enough's enough. I've done all the prayer meetings. I've mobilized worship. I've called people to pray for America. Now I'm kind of in a season where I'm essentially responding or fulfilling some of my own prayers.
Yeah, Sean, I hate that Rob's not with us. Rob's got a similar sort of journey. He is a Virginia guy who spent some time in Southern California and says a lot of similar things about the situations in California that we talk about sort of off camera, off screen here. and the need for that. And so what I know about Bethel, I'm not going to brag, but I did write a master's level paper that I got an A on Bethel Church. So if you'd like to read that later, I can pass it on to you. But what I know about your church is you're very engaged in culture and the community. That Bethel as a church and really as a people feel a responsibility to serve where they are. Has your church experience in your time with Bethel had an impact on this decision to run for Congress?
I think, I think when you're in an apostolic community, I think what the role of the apostolic in the church is to kind of have big windows and tall ceilings. And it's where you step into a house and, I think sometimes pastor-dominated churches or movements, the end goal is everybody becomes a pastor. Everybody becomes kind of in the church world, which is great. But in many ways, that's kind of in America what's got us to where we are. In the apostolic community, we're called to literally go anywhere and do anything, whether that's affecting, the entertainment industry or, man, we need Christians to rise up and be billionaires. We need people in the fashion industry. We need people in sports and politics. We need people to go into that realm. And so I think, it's not necessarily that I have a lot of examples, unfortunately, that I'm following, because there's just not a lot out there right now for examples from people in the faith space entering into the political arena.
Yeah.
But I will say that the theology and the way our church functions is, I feel like they're cheering me on, and
Good.
even those that don't understand, crazy. I'm actually one that thinks it's crazy. But they are supporting me, and they're like, yeah, we're praying these prayers that heaven would come to earth. We're praying these prayers that we would go into all the world, and we can't exclude the political arena. That is a place where God is worthy of worship. He's worthy of believers stepping in. So yeah, it's been a huge part of my journey.
That's good. So you've experienced a lot of support then from your community there at Bethel?
Yeah, I have.
That's good.
They've been very supportive.
Well, I'm excited. I was intrigued, and again, I've been a observer from afar of Bethel Church. My wife and I have actually a young lady who we've worked with, and she was a teacher with her, who's one of the students there at Bethel School of Supernatural Ministry. We think the world of her, and we think the world of what Bethel's doing. So it was interesting to watch her experience and then see you sort of make this decision to run for Congress. It was, I know I was going like, wow, I've got to talk to this guy because that's an interesting story. So what do you see the responsibility beyond, and you've mentioned some other things, but how as a faith community, as believers, do we really start to engage in our culture? I mean, you're running for politics, but how do we become agents of change in culture?
Well, I think that we have to go back to the words of Jesus, and he didn't commission the disciples to all be pastors and build mega churches, and there's nothing wrong with that. People are called to do that, right. But he commissioned them to go into all the world. And most of those guys were bivocationalists. They had businesses, they had things that they were doing, fishermen, tax collectors. And somehow they have to find a way of embracing the gospel call while doing their trade, while doing their job. And I think that we have to. There's been too many lines between the sacred and the secular, and we've kind of in the past been in really dualistic thinking. It's interesting, man. Even on my journey, it's like there's so many Christians that are apolitical. Like they don't want to take a stand. They don't want to be engaged. And because of that, we've come to the place where we're at in America. That is absolutely crazy. The rhetoric is crazy. And the church is largely absent in this space. And we're suffering the consequences of the inaction of the church unwilling to engage in this realm. So, and I get it. It's crazy. It's dirty. It is dark. I mean, this is a dark arena. I will tell you that just in my few months on this journey. But we have to, for the sake of the future, be people that respond to the call of Jesus and engage in every sphere of society. Isaiah chapter 2 says that all of the mountains essentially will become, the worship mountain. Like it's not just about us being in the four walls and hiding and kind of doing our own little thing. It's about really every mountain becoming a witness or a revelation of God and his goodness. And so that's my encouragement to people.
So for you, that next mountain is politics then, or the political arena. It is something we need to work towards, maybe.
It is for the season. I mean, I just want to be, I'm taking my guitar into all these countries, and now I'm going to take it into DC. And, I want to be an encouragement to people out there. I want to show people that, I'm willing to fight for my generation and fight for the future of my kids and our nation. I love America. I mean, so much anti-American rhetoric among millennials, and I am so grateful for God's calling this nation. And I don't feel like God's done with America yet. I feel like that he has amazing plans. So,
yeah. You mentioned something I wrote down here that too many of us have blurred are drawn lines between the sacred and the secular. How do we go about either removing the line or blurring the line? Because I feel like that's a very valid point that the church sort of is staying out of a lot of fights, or believers are staying out of a lot of fights. Yeah. It is dirty. It's a sucker punch game a lot of times. How do we step into some of those places with faith intact, with our belief system intact, and maybe blur the line between some of those spaces of secular and sacred? And I think Bethel does a great job in the arts, especially. I mean, you're most well known for Bethel music, but how do we as people sort of blur some of those lines? Yeah, that's important. And I think the Kanye conversation has been one that's even another conversation I think a lot of church people have hesitated to get involved in. I think a lot of people are on pause with Kanye to see if it's lasting fruit. And I don't want to put you on the spot, but what do you feel about that celebrity culture? Because we've seen some get radically saved and come out and make bold remarks. What is your response to that? How do you see that unfolding?
I mean, I think it's ridiculous to not celebrate. I mean, Jesus is king. That phrase was in Times Square, downtown Times Square, for I think 3 days, where over 10 million people, that's all they saw in a building, was a big blue Jesus is king. Listen, God will use whoever he wants to use. It's not up to us to, and that, I mean, even all this, you got to follow this line of thinking, all the way up to the president. God will use who he wants to use. And he is not on trial. He is not on trial from us, having to wait for us to give him an okay or a verification. I mean, all throughout the Bible, I mean, you look at the life of David. I mean, David was the worst sinner of sinners. He had an affair. He was a murderer. He was a slanderer. He was a cheater. And God actually chose David to be the lineage to which his son would come into the earth through. And he would call his son the son of David. So I think Christians got to lay down their hypocrisy. They got to lay down their right to try to prove their religiosity. God is going to continue to flip the script. and continue to blow our minds with the kind of people that he uses. And we just have to cheer him on. And, they're not perfect people, and Kanye's probably going to screw up and might do something dumb. And it doesn't mean that it devalues all the good that he's done. I mean, gosh, we're so grateful for testimonies like that.
Yeah, no, I mean, and it seems to me that, and again, from a spectator view, I've not been involved in the conversation firsthand, but that the message of Jesus as King, the things he's doing with Sunday service, we're seeing mass amounts of people who may never enter the door of a church building come to these settings or these services, and a lot of them are giving their heart to Christ. So I think it was Paul who wrote in one of the letters that says, "What does it matter if Jesus is being preached?" And that's sort of the stand I think I've taken with the whole Kanye thing. If Jesus is being preached, what does it matter? And so, yeah, we want to celebrate with the good things. So, and I want to touch on this, and you tell me, and I'll let you guide the conversation. Your church recently, again, made a splash in the headlines with one of your worship pastors' daughter passing away, and you guys went to season of prayer for that Olive and the resurrection. And there was some divided thought on that. I'll be honest about what it caused for me is it caused me to pray with greater faith and to believe for more. What's been sort of the response that you guys have seen at Bethel from that?
Yeah, I would love to comment on this. I was greatly affected, and I'll comment here, and then I'm gonna have to bust off to another meeting. But
no worries.
I'm so grateful. I think that I think that anytime somebody stands up with bold faith, it either causes people to come into agreement with your radical faith. And by the way, this is not people that think that this is a theological discussion. It's actually not one. Jesus said to, heal the sick and raise the dead. It was very clear. We're doing the works of Jesus. We're responding, and he didn't actually give a timeline. Only pray for them until then. Only pray for them until there's no certain amount of time. There's no certain amount of days. That's more of a pastoral issue and a pastoral decision. But it is amazing that even the bold faith of believers pressing in for a baby to be raised from the dead is actually something that would trigger the skeptics. I mean, I'm just shocked at the world that we live in right now, that even bold faith, even faith in believing the words of Jesus could be a lightning rod for controversy. It just shows you how crazy the days are that we live in. But my faith was profoundly impacted. Our whole community has been changed. I think anytime that you see that display, kind of almost Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, hey, we're not going to bow to unbelief, even if our God has the power to save us, but even if he doesn't, we're still not going to yield. And that's the kind of inner strength and the inner resolve that, our community exhibited, led by Callie and her husband, Andrew, and just, we were just so moved. We were so impacted. And I don't think any of us will ever be the same. We were believing for the awakening of a 2-year-old baby, and, God came and awakened all of us in the process.
Wow, that's powerful. Yeah, I know. I was, again, challenged to pray differently, and have been challenged to pray differently. We have, Sean, I appreciate your time. I know you got to run. We have one final question we ask every one of our guests. It's kind of a fun question, or it can be a serious question, however you want to answer it. But we do record here on a college campus. What is maybe the greatest lesson or one lesson you learned in college that didn't take place in the classroom?
Probably most lessons in life. I think that for me, I think the management of my life, I think one is the formative years of realizing, do I really believe this thing? Do I really believe in Jesus? Do I really believe in the gospel? Do I really believe in it? I need to make those decisions that are going to guide the rest of my life. And then two, just the management of my life and friendships. And I think that is amazing. I can see a definite difference from people that have gone through a 4-year degree, 3 or 4 year degree, as those who haven't. And I think a lot of it comes down to just being able to manage your life and set up goals and meet those goals. And I think when you're cramming for finals and you're up till 2 a.m. eating Papa John's, and you're just, it puts this drive in you. And I think that drive is really healthy. I think we all need to carry that if we want to achieve greatness.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Well, we are so thankful for your time. I know you're busy. We are cheering you on. We don't have a California vote, but we're cheering you on from Tennessee. How can people stay connected with you, Sean?
Yeah. Hey, if you want to track with us, you can go to SeanForUs.com. Again, that's Sean, FORUS.com. And yeah, I'm in California, but this is a federal position, and I have the ability to release policy that impacts not only all of America, but the world. So I want to represent conservative millennials. So jump on our team, follow us, donate, be a part of what we're doing. We'd love that. It'd be a big support.
We're again thankful for your time. And as we always say here at the Collectives Co podcast, you have a seat at the table with us. Hey, thanks for listening to this episode of the Collectives Co podcast. Would you do us a favor and subscribe, rate, and review, and share this on social media so this content can reach other great leaders?